questions. You got time for a couple more?
Yeah.
Okay, now this is a fun one I've been asking more and more people. Whether in your military career or outside of it, have you ever seen or experienced something you truly could not explain? UFOs, paranormal, anything. Is there anything you went through or you witnessed where you're like, I have no answer for what this is?
Let me try and make this as short a story. I'm a long-winded person anyway, but I'll make this as short as I possibly can. I was in Ranger school, and I was telling someone as we're laying there droning in the middle of the night behind a pine tree, pulling security on no bad guys. Uh, I'm explaining to one of my Ranger school mates about this reoccurring dream that I've had, and there was like some sort of virus that was spread, and one of the main like the main people in this dream was like trying to get to this certain place, and I think it was in New York, but I don't really know. And it's like he's coming across like cars out in the middle of country roads, and like opens the car and there's people that are dead of the virus in the car and everything else. And so I go through this, I don't know, 20-minute long story explaining all this like graphic detail that I've been dreaming about over and over and over again since as long as I can remember. Like we'll say, 1972, 1973, I've got this thing rattling around in my brain. And he goes, "Oh yeah, that's the movie Omega Man with Charlton Heston in it, whomever." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" Like this thing that I've literally thought I probably was a little kid and snuck down and was like watching TV from the stairs or something. And I've gone back and watched it, and I was like, that's my dream. That's my reoccurring dream from childhood. So, to answer your actual question, no, I've never really seen anything that I would say. There's been some weird stuff I've seen in the water. Was doing a bunch of like waterborne operation stuff in Panama, and saw stuff in the water that I was like, okay, that wasn't a crocodile. It wasn't a giant snake, but I mean, like a huge thing. Who knows what it was? But yeah, I've never, no UFOs.
Well, real quick, because you brought up the water thing. Have you ever? This is true. So people listen to this. I'm not making this up. You can read about it online. There was a British pilot, I believe, in the 50s or late 40s that photographed that snake that was apparently like 50 feet long from the air. And if you don't know, if you're listening to this, you don't know what I'm talking about. Just Google pilot snake, and they said when the thing stood up, it was like 10 feet in the air, and there's a photo of it, like in real life. So the fact that there's snakes that are that big roaming the wild is very terrifying, in my opinion.
I'm very fascinated by the unknown. Like I grew up as a kid, there was a amazing TV show called In Search of that was hosted by Leonard Nimoy, who is Spock in
Yeah.
the Star Trek. And it was always like looking into the paranormal, and here's the Loch Ness monster or Bigfoot or whatever it might be. And I love that show, exploration. And so I've had this conversation recently with people about certain things like, okay, Bigfoot, it was a huge phenomenon in like the 70s. There were movies about it, there were all kinds of things. I think Jack Osborne's even doing a show like searching for Bigfoot or whatever. I refuse to believe that in 2022, when everybody in the world has a device that they can either take pictures with or video, that these things haven't shown up. So, I don't know what's going on with the whole UFO thing and the military kind of. I mean, if you think about the number of people that probably saw stealth bombers back in the 80s and 90s before, this thing was made public, or special things that fly around, drone stuff, like who knows what people have seen that they couldn't explain. And, not writing it all off as this doesn't exist, but
The big thing with Bigfoot, and I'm sure you'll agree, I'm on the same wavelength as you are. We have hunters all over America that go into the woods every year to hunt elk, deer, whatever it might be. And we have so many stories. They claim they saw a 10-foot tall creature walking towards them through the wood. But yet none of these guys armed with hunting rifles in the history of America have ever shot one of these things. Pretty suspicious how they all see them, but no one's ever, fired a round one time. I don't
Yeah.
know. I think that
Or the Bigfoot believers are like, well, they're extinct now. They were, they were very thin, and we've never found bones. We've never found, where they lived, or I find the ocean probably the most intriguing, and I'm an ocean person. Like, love surfing, just being in the ocean in general. There is so much we don't know about the ocean, and almost every time we go into the ocean, there's like some new species that's discovered. We're like, holy shit, there's this shark next to our submersible that we've never seen that's at 2,000 feet, depth or whatever it might be. And I find that super intriguing. The other one that I'll say, in addition to In Search Of, was growing up as a little kid watching Johnny Quest. And, it's a show that came out in 1964, was 2 seasons, so 64 and 65. And it's a cartoon, but which is the only way you could really do it right, because some of the things they predicted so much. Like, there's FaceTiming. They're literally got a little handheld device. They're FaceTiming with one another. But it was this very exploratory type of thing. I grew up with Adventure Team GI Joes. So at some point in the early 70s, the Vietnam War was so unpopular that they stopped making GI Joe as a soldier, and they made him Adventure Team, and he had a beard and the fuzzy hair and all of that stuff. And they had like these adventures that they would go on, deep sea exploring. You had a scuba diver, GI Joe. You had, these different things. And anyway, I feel like that probably was the impetus for military, doing something kind of that way. I wish that there was an organization like Adventure Team GI Joe that could go and be a part of that. That would have been cool.
What's the funniest thing you've ever seen while deployed? Any good prank stories? Any good comedy things?
I think that if Hollywood gets anything wrong about war, it's the lack of, funny stuff that happens like in the thick of horrible situations. That's one of the things that they get wrong. Is I feel like, for me, Chris, Chili, like all of us that were rolling around on the same team for the better part of like 5 years together, it was just nothing but grabassery and joking around and, pulling out the little Chili's a short guy. So we pull out the chili ladder and put it up against the little bird or against the vehicle. And like, we would take it places and stuff like that. It's just absolutely hilarious. Yeah, there was I think at some point it got written into Black Hawk Down. I can't remember, but there was like a donkey that was running around in the middle of the gunfight and like had a cart strapped to it. And it was like, you're like literally trading gunfire back and forth across the street. And it's like violence and chaos and all kinds of stuff. And like donkey just goes like running down the street by itself. And then it comes back and goes the other way. And you're like, dumb donkey, get out of here. At some point, the donkey got hit. But anyways, it's the other thing that Hollywood never gets right is like the surreal aspect of things, where I don't think that it's anything that you're seeing isn't realistic. It's more like your brain can't comprehend what it's perceiving. So you're in this situation, there's like this intense overload of adrenaline and fear and all of that stuff. You're seeing stuff happen that you never, you can't really understand fully. And these other things, whether it's angles, I know riding in a helicopter, as an example, when that thing banks to make a turn and you're sitting in the door, you can actually see like under the helicopter, the horizon on the other side. And there's a version of almost being upside down, looking under the helicopter at things that are on the other side. And these angles are they're just not things that your brain fully can perceive or has the time to absorb and process. And so you're left with this feeling of, man, what the hell was that? And, it just, anyway,